But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the house barrage, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Being kind is the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and, well, what another fucking week that this has been. You may not have seen it because I actually neglected to link it in the Discord, but I did sort of a special stream on Wednesday, which, if you go back, I'm going to just drop the link in chat real quick. Let me just get it. I was looking over the ICJ issued a new advisory opinion on Palestine, specifically dealing with whether Israel could just ban UNRWA and other UN bodies from providing humanitarian aid and stuff like that. And so I did just an analysis, a quick analysis of the opinion. And I'm just going to drop that in there in chat for anyone who's interested in seeing it. One of the things that occurred to me as I was reading it was I'm always trying to look for sort of what the bad faith reading that pro-Israel assholes are going to put it to. And in this particular case, what I think we're probably going to see a fair bit of is going to be people saying, well, it didn't say that they're breaching these obligations. It didn't say they have to do anything to deal with the breach, or something like that. I can totally see, like, fucking Sex Pestany say something like that, because that is exactly, it's a combination of, like, illiteracy and bad faith that he brings to the table, But, so the thing to note, if you get into discussions with people who say shit like this about the opinion, is that it is unusual in its structure. Because normally with these things, you'll find if you look up ICJ advisory opinions, most of the names of the opinions begin with legal consequences of something. Like when they had the opinion last year in July that declared the occupation completely illegal and reaffirmed that Gaza is indeed still occupied. That was legal consequences of, like, the presence of Israel in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem, something like that. But this time it was just called obligations of Israel in regard to Gaza and UN bodies. And they did that for a specific reason, because they've got all these other cases dealing with some aspect of Israel and Gaza already pending, and they wanted to avoid prejudging it. So the General Assembly, who gets to decide what the question is that they're going to put to the ICJ, decided not to say legal consequences, and instead asked about just obligations. The difference here is it's basically cuts the analysis one step short. And they did this in order to ensure that there wasn't a procedural objection to taking the question at all. Like, to give you an example of the difference between obligations and legal consequences, you could say, for example, let's take just road traffic. You would say motorists have an obligation to exercise due care towards other motorists and participants in traffic, and in particular an obligation not to be behind the wheel if they've been drinking. That would be how you answer what are the obligations. Now, what are the legal consequences requires you to go a step further, look at what this particular case involves. Say that this particular driver had just had a fifth of Jim Beam before getting behind the wheel and had taken the tops off of various fire hydrants or something like that. And then you say they breached this obligation and therefore they must do this, this, and this as a consequence of the breach. So when the ICJ eventually reaches a decision in the South Africa versus Israel case, which deals with the question of genocide, or the Nicaragua case, which deals with is Nicaragua and Germany, which deals with basically what the standard is for complicity. Then Nicaragua is alleging quite reasonably that Germany is complicit in genocide. And so each of those will get down to legal consequences, and if they find for the applicants, for South Africa and for Nicaragua in these cases, then they will say, okay, and therefore Germany has to do this, and therefore Israel has to do this, and everything. That's legal consequences. This only said obligations, and so it does not go as far as saying Israel's in breach of these obligations and therefore must do this. And I can totally see Hasboroids having a field day with that bullshit. So I just thought I would point that out. Well, I've had an interesting week, and I've got a bunch of options that I'm looking at here. I think we might start out with some David Pac-Man bullshit. We have worst debate of all time, involving Mamdani and fucking Cuomo. And that's a relatively short one, so I think we're going to start out with that.
We start
see what the 1630 funds own
This was really something.
David Pac-Man has to say about the Mamdani Cuomo debate. I have not seen the debate, and considering some of the debates that we've seen in the past couple of years, I'm uncertain whether this could really be the worst one, though I could also totally see it being the worst one. I don't know, the one where Biden said he beat Medicare has to be up there pretty high, personally, I would have to say, but okay, we'll see. What does 1630 Pac-Man have to say about it?
You all know I'm not a socialist, right? Some of you like that, some of you dislike that.
Oh, wow, I'm shocked. He's not a socialist?
I'm a social democrat. It's a highly regulated form of capitalism. It's what they have in Denmark. It's what they have in Sweden. Zoran Mamdani says he's a socialist.
Yeah, although he seems to be more of a social democrat as well, because a lot of the time in the US you have this term democratic socialism, and often when you listen to what people who call themselves that are advocating for, it's basically social democracy.
That's a political difference that I have with him. But I can't look at this race objectively and come to any conclusion other than Mamdani is clearly the most likable candidate.
Well, I mean, look at who he's running against. I don't see how that would ever have been in doubt. I mean, you have the fucking serial sex pest Cuomo, whose signature move was essentially just abandoning a whole bunch of care home residents to their deaths in the first year of the pandemic and then trying to cover that shit up. And he's Netanyahu's lawyer in the genocide case is against him. Well, he's one of the lawyers. I mean, Netanyahu wisely has decided to have more than just fucking Cuomo. Jesus. Yeah, so, I mean, and then what? Eric Adams? That fucking guy? Like, I mean, I think anyone running against them in the, in the likability stakes just wins by default.
Curtis Sliwa, the Republican.
Oh yeah, Guardian Angels guy. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I would be really shocked if he was putting in a serious entry in the likability stakes to the extent that that's what we're going with.
Is completely off the rails, albeit funny.
Well, I mean, I'm really shocked that the guy who founded a fucking vigilante group is off the rails.
And Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York.
The disgraced former governor, that adjective is required here.
Comes off as deeply unlikable, out of touch, and disingenuous. Now, I don't know him personally. That's a political assessment. You know, I know his brother Chris Cuomo, and...
I mean, Chris Cuomo's all those things too. I mean, and not to mention just pathetically carrying water for his asshole brother.
Sometimes Chris and I will chat, and these are not personal attacks. This is my analysis of the race, and this was just a complete disaster for Cuomo. I'll start with maybe the most intense moment when Mamdani goes right at Cuomo over.
There's so many things it could be over. Chat, what are your top 5 on what Mamdani would go after fucking Cuomo over?
The sexual harassment and assault allegations, including from one woman who is in the audience.
Wow. Oh, this is HD.
Mr. Cuomo, in 2021, 13 different women who worked in your administration credibly accused you of sexual harassment. Since then, you have spent more than $20 million in taxpayer funds to defend yourself, all while describing these allegations as entirely political.
Oh yeah, okay, so it's like, that's even better, really. So he wasted a huge... He got to use taxpayer funds for his own personal defense against sexual harassment allegations? Like, that must be nice. That seems kind of fucking dodgy.
You have even gone so far as to legally go after these women. One of those
God, he can't even look at the audience. Look at him. He's just fucking looking at his shoes.
Charlotte Bennett is here in the audience this evening.
Like, seriously, did he not know that this was gonna come up? This has come up all through the fucking campaign. It is like one of the things everybody knows about him. It's why one of the things that New Yorkers unite over is hating Cuomo. The other thing is hating Adams, actually. But, like, you'd think that he would have been prepped for this. You'd think that somebody would have prepped him to, you know, not stand there looking like you're about to get fucking sentenced.
You sought to access her private gynecological records. She cannot speak up for herself because you lodged a defamation case against her. I, however, can speak. What do you say to the 13 women that you sexually harassed?
Yeah, I mean, this is the sort of energy that I would have, I mean, like, during the Trump-Biden thing where you had, like, 2 people, with, like, the entire fucking field was people credibly accused of sexual harassment and assault. And so the result was nobody said shit about it. That, I mean, and that's, you know, that killed me too. More than anything.
If you
How about them Yankees?
want to be in government, then you have to be serious and mature.
You mean, so, and serious and mature means you understand that sometimes you gotta use taxpayer money in order to defend yourself from sexual harassment and assault allegations, rather than, like, fucking settling and leaving public life for good.
There were allegations of sexual harassment. They were then went to 5 district attorneys, fully litigated for 4 years. The cases were dropped.
That's in the okay, wait. So he's saying that because district attorneys dropped criminal cases, that means it didn't happen? 'Cause that's not how that works. Also, district attorneys, prosecutors in the U.S. can decide completely just freely decide whether they want to pursue a case or not. There is no obligation to ever pursue a case that they don't want to. This isn't like there are countries where if there's evidence that the law has been broken, that a criminal law has been broken, the prosecutor has to initiate at least investigative proceedings. The U.S. isn't one of those countries. Prosecutors can drop a case for all sorts of reasons, and it doesn't mean shit about the merits.
Right? You know that as a fact. So everything you just said was a misstatement.
No, it wasn't. He didn't say anything none of that doesn't affect the accuracy of anything he said. He didn't stake this on whether district attorneys decided that there was a criminal case to answer.
Which we're accustomed to from
stated was a misstatement?
Yes, because the cases were dropped.
Wow, so he's arguing I really hope Mamdani comes back and says, well, let's talk about the care homes then. But this is wild. So he's saying because it wasn't DAs didn't find it indictable, that therefore it didn't happen, and you can't be criticized for it. This motherfucker is literally just saying that if it's short of the threshold of criminality with a high likelihood of successful prosecution, then you can't criticize him for it?
Now, this is probably, listen, I guess this is Cuomo's best defense.
It really, I can't see how it is. And not that there's any good one, because this one is just saying, DAs decided that this wasn't quite enough for a criminal case, so therefore I can't be criticized for it, and you need to just, you can't criticize the decision for me to be a fucking a mayoral candidate. There's a presidential election in Ireland, so, right now. So I got them mixed up for a second there. So yeah, I guess that is, but again, only by default. Only by fucking default, because the only really good response to all of this would be to apologize profusely and leave public life. So this is pretty much what he is left with if he, for some reason, decides that he wants to stay in this race. Because I literally can't think of anything better. Unless he was able to prove ironclad that there was an alibi and he couldn't possibly have been in the place at the time any of this stuff happened. And I feel like we would have heard about that if that was in the offing. Definite 100% proof of innocence, he wasn't even in the country at the time kind of thing. I guess that is, but it sucks. And it is exactly why it is wild that he has decided to stay in this thing.
We all, of course, know that just because a case can't be prosecuted doesn't mean something didn't happen.
And just because a DA doesn't want to prosecute something doesn't mean that it can't be prosecuted.
A lot of sexual harassment is also not criminal.
And most of it, actually, literally most of it isn't criminal. Most of it never, actually, I did not know that DAs were involved in this process. Because that is unusual. That suggests that this was actually really fucking bad. Worse than I had entirely realized. Because otherwise, why is a DA even considering it in the first place? Normally this would be a civil matter.
So, I don't know. Maybe this is the best Cuomo could do with it, but it really wasn't great. And the groaning, the audible groaning at the answer, not so good.
Yeah, but I guess if you're the guy who essentially put a whole bunch of, just wrote off the lives of a whole bunch of care home residents, condemned them to death in the early days of the pandemic, tried to cover it up, and you're also representing a genocide perpetrator just on a pro bono basis, I mean, I guess you get a thick skin and not much of a sense of shame.
Now, Curtis Sliwa, I got to tell you, I don't agree with this guy Sliwa on just about anything. But he had some lines cooked up that he was ready to go with.
Of course he did, because, like, if you, of course you would want to be, this is like if you were appearing opposite a guy whose entire defense is the DA said it wasn't sufficient to be a crime, then, I mean, that's like a dream debate, really, because you can just start out by pointing that out.
Here he is sort of attacking both Mamdani and Cuomo. And again, I don't agree with Sliwa's politics, but he came prepared with at least some one-liners.
Like, I mean, I'm so glad that that this is reduced to people coming prepared with at least some one-liners.
Zoran, you talk about free, free, free.
I think that's not how adjectives work.
We know that somebody's got to pay for it, and that's you, the taxpayers.
Yeah, I mean, everybody fucking understands that. The thing is that when you pay for it that way, it's almost always cheaper than paying for it on a per-use basis. How is that still a gotcha?
And that's going to lead to bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy for who? Like, how much more in tax does this require that is going... Like, whose bankruptcy? Like...
The only reason that Zoran is on the stage is because of the failed Governor Cuomo, who was rejected by the Democrats in the primary and rejected by 13 women who charged you with sexual harassment.
God, like, why is he even... Does he have a humiliation kink? Like, most people would be running for the fucking hills rather than go... Like, if they had this kind of shit. What?
You ever know that no means no? You know what no means?
Sweat, your question is to Mr. Cuomo. Who was your question
to? We can bifurcate it, right?
No. You can't. Who was your question
It's to Cuomo.
Okay.
Like, I think he decided that on the fly.
Your response, Mr. Cuomo.
Like, what was the question? There wasn't a question. He was just pointing out that Cuomo's a piece of shit.
I'm not sure what the man said, but...
yeah, that fits that... I see... That fits that he wouldn't understand the phrase no means no.
The situation, my legal situation, as we discussed before, was fully litigated. I was dropped from the cases.
Anyway, Sliwa came...
Yeah, like... so, does it just go on like that?
Prepared. He's doing what he can with a situation that is not favorable to him to win this race, obviously. When Andrew Cuomo...
well, I mean, I think what he may have worked out is that the one thing that he may be able to connect with people on is hating Cuomo. Because, again, it does unify people. Everybody hates that guy.
Said that the number of homeless increased since he left. He was accused by Sliwa not of leaving but of fleeing, and this was maybe...
No, I mean, he did resign in disgrace. I mean, that is actually a fair characterization.
Sliwa's best mo.
But I mean, just to get onto a more meta level here. This is what we're talking about here. Like, Pac-Man has very systematically avoided substance on this. Like, I'm sure they got it. Did they never get into... I didn't see this. I did not watch this debate. This is all I'm watching, but I'm sure substance may have at some point come into it. It wasn't all just pointing out what a fucking piece of shit Andrew Cuomo is, I'm sure. Even though you could easily spend an hour's time doing that and you would not have to repeat material.
The homeless issue, number of homeless since I left, has more than doubled.
Wow, you mean, so maybe it sounds like house prices are going up. and maybe wages have not been. Like, is he saying that if he had not resigned in disgrace, that inflation wouldn't have happened?
During his administration and the state's administration.
Whose administration? Mamdani hasn't had an administration. What is he talking about? I mean, that would be Eric Adams, I think, who I don't see on this stage.
Since I left, homeless rate has more than doubled. When I left, the vacancy rate on housing was 4.5%. It's now 1%. This man never even proposed a bill on housing or education. Never even proposed a bill.
Keep going back and forth between the two of you, Mr. Sliwa. It's your turn.
Andrew, you didn't leave. You fled from being impeached by the Democrats in the state legislature.
Sliwa came prepared to try to make some...
Like, he keeps on saying this, he came prepared, like, all he had to know was the most basic thing about Andrew Cuomo that literally any random person you stop in the streets in New York would know. And probably even if that counts tourists. Like, it does not take any... Like, he's, like, praising this preparation, but it's just knowing basic things about the guy that everybody knows. There's no skill in that.
Lemonade out of the very few lemons available to him, and another one was this line.
Yeah,
that's not how that expression works.
Fighting like kids in the schoolyard. Zoran, your resume.
He wants to talk about, like, what, fighting? I mean, a guy who founded a fucking vigilante group? I think he did.
On a cocktail napkin, and Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City. Okay.
That's really not a bad line, even.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's also true, but, like, you just see also just how pointless this debate is. Like, what exactly is even coming out of it? Like, okay, like, what benefit is there for this? Is anyone making up their mind based on this? I don't think, it seems very unlikely that there are that many unmade up minds to begin with.
No, the crowd...
but if they did, I mean, we've just established that, like, everybody hates Cuomo, which everybody already knew, and that Sliwa doesn't like either of them, which we could have guessed because he's running against them, so obviously he can't be saying how great they are, because that's not how that works.
Crowd wasn't really going for it. The question was asked whether the three candidates, Cuomo, Mamdani, and Sliwa, would accept an endorsement from outgoing New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Like, is these the kind of questions that they had? Christ.
If it were offered.
Would any of you accept Mayor Adams' endorsement? Mr. Mamdani?
No.
Mr. Cuomo?
Yes, I would.
Well, yeah, I mean, not surprising.
Absolutely not. Put that crook in jail where he belongs.
Motherfucker, you're running as a Republican. It's your guy who ensured that he wasn't going to jail. Like...
And final, a fun one.
Be careful. Be careful.
All right, and Cuomo there, very, very, you gotta be careful with that. You gotta be super careful. Mamdani came prepared as well?
Like, who can? Okay. I mean, you would hope that they did, but on the other hand, is this the commentary? Like, this is slop. This is what we're talking about when we talk about slop, because this does not enrich the discussion. He's saying something that anyone could have said, like, because if you look at somebody who's on a stage, you can kind of tell whether they have some kind of preparation or not. That's really not the question. Like, was there any substance here? Did this actually matter? Because all we've heard is just reminders that Cuomo's a piece of shit. And, like, fucking YouTube comment grade, responses to proposals to make life marginally affordable in fucking New York.
And here was another one of his attacks on Andrew Cuomo, who was really the only other potentially viable challenger, even though it looks like Mamdani's going to run away with this thing.
In 2027. You still haven't answered.
You will hear from Andrew Cuomo about his experience as if the issue is that we don't know about it. The issue...
Yeah, I mean, and this is exactly the thing. This is precisely why hearing about candidates' experience, like, it would be like, Hillary Clinton's very experienced. Yeah, I know. We saw her experience. We experienced her experience. People in Libya and Afghanistan and lots of other places experienced her experience firsthand. Yeah, that is exactly why I don't want her anywhere near power.
Is that we have all experienced your experience. The issue is that...
I did not know that he was going to say that.
We experienced you taking a $5 million book deal while you sent seniors to their deaths in nursing homes.
Oh, I was wondering if that was going to come up.
The issue is that we experienced you cutting funding...
What is he going to do now? Is he going to say, well, they decided no crime was committed again?
...for the MTA to send money to upstate ski resorts. The issue is that we saw you give $959 million in tax breaks to Elon Musk. The issue is your experience.
No, the only thing...
Absolutely just cooking, just not even a bit of daylight there for Cuomo to try to pull himself up. Cuomo...
I mean... That's the thing. It's like, this is what we're talking about, you know, this whole... It's this horse race aspect of it that is the only thing getting talked about. This is the same shit that you get from, like, mainstream media. They don't want to talk about the proposals. They don't want to have, like, a debate, you know, a discussion on, you know, priorities and proposals and things like that that might actually kind of contribute a bit to democratizing the society. They want to talk about who got hits in. And, yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you can't get hits in on fucking Cuomo in front of a New York audience, I really don't think you should be on stage, really, because it's not hard.
Most snarkiest moment was probably this one, when the
topic... Well, I'm glad we get to hear his snarkiest moment.
...of psychiatric hospitals came up. Cuomo said he was going to save a bed in one of the hospitals for Curtis Sliwa. Funny, but...
I mean, ableist as fuck.
Not likely the way to get Curtis Sliwa to drop out and endorse Cuomo, which is really Cuomo's only shot at this point.
Okay, thank you, 40,000 beds for mental health in the state hospital system. By the time you fled fearing impeachment, you cut the budget down to 4,000 beds. Shame on you for putting those emotionally disturbed persons in the street.
You don't know what you're telling. Well, there's one better I'm going to say for you, but...
Well, so he just... what this is he actually was just dodging the issue, is what that is. He didn't want to actually talk about that because... Again, that sucks. So he decided to do ableism.
No one is saying...
There's one bet I'm going to save for you. It was not one that the audience received.
Well, because they just fucking hate him, and...
Well, another good moment for Mamdani, pointing out that a lot of Andrew Cuomo's criticisms of how the state screws the city are relevant to moments when Cuomo was governor. Mamdani sort of implying it was you screwing the city.
Well, I mean, I don't think that was implying. I think the point is he was literally saying it. That he's literally saying, yeah, all those times you point out that the state's screwing the city, that was you in the state house at the time. You're literally giving us more of your experience, sort of thing.
That's what was taking place.
But
the worst attendance record in the assembly, and you gave yourselves the highest raise in the United States of America. You went from $110,000 to $140,000, and then you never showed up for work. And you...
How is that the highest raise in the U.S.? Like, out of what? Out of what? City councilors? I mean, maybe out of city councilors, though. I don't know about that. I don't know what city councilors make in other places. Although I would be surprised if New York ones were not already making above the odds, because cost of living is way above the odds. Lots of people get paid more in New York than they would for things that they would if they were doing the same work elsewhere. But
missed 80% of the votes. Shame on you. Shame on you.
No, it is always a pleasure to hear Andrew Cuomo create his own facts at every debate stage.
Yeah.
We just had a former governor say in his own words that the city has been getting screwed by the state. Who was leading the state? It was you!
Governor Hochul.
yeah, he wasn't implying it, dickhead. He's outright saying it.
Screwing the city. No. You cut homelessness funding.
Now, of course, the truth is that the time period related to this discussion includes a little bit of Andrew Cuomo's tenure as governor and a bunch of Kathy Hochul's tenure as governor.
Oh, yeah, and she sucks shit, too.
It doesn't matter. It's a good line. These debates are performative. They're not really about policy.
Well, I mean, see, is that maybe a problem? Maybe that's not how they should be. Maybe they actually should be a forum for discussing what should be done about things. Maybe this entire way of doing debates is actually kind of worthless, except if you want to totally marginalize people's ideas about their priorities for what should happen from the political sphere. But you don't get a fucking 1630 fund money by asking questions like that.
And then finally, the candidates asked, if there was a ranked choice election, how would you all rank each other?
Answer a straight question. If there is a ranked choice election, how would you vote, Mr. Mamdani?
If there was a ranked choice election?
In this. You'd have to rank these.
Myself number 1 and Curtis number 2.
Mr. Sliwa.
Oh, please don't be glazing me here, Zora. Are you kidding?
Mr. Sliwa, do you want to have
I support ranked choice voting, but I'd only vote for myself.
There you go. Listen, this is a fascinating race. The outcome at this point is the least interesting thing, in that it seems like a foregone conclusion that Mamdani's going to run away with this thing.
But
it is a fascinating race.
Is it really? Yeah, I have to say, there are adjectives that come to mind. Fascinating isn't one of them. Fascinating to me means it's showing you something new and unexpected, taking you different places. And this is just like a microcosm of US politics. I mean, you have at least a couple of people on the stage who, by any normal standard of decency, shouldn't be allowed even in the fucking building. The only real difference between this and like federal debates is that this stuff actually is out in the open, which is kind of nice on a certain level, except at the same time, like, it just underscores how much the whole thing sucks, actually. Now, recently we've been hearing a lot about purity tests. And I discovered, was reminded, really, when I went to look for some videos on the subject, that actually this isn't the first time we've seen Democrats going off on fucking so-called purity tests. And it's an interesting concept when you think about it, the way it's talked about. Because there are lots of things that are not considered purity tests, though they are applied with extreme rigidity by Democrats. Like, for example, let's take one. Being willing in practice, if not necessarily always in rhetoric, to support insurance companies controlling healthcare. If you want the support of the DNC, that is absolutely obligatory. Being willing to support apartheid in Palestine. If you want the support of the DNC, you gotta. It's I mean, but that shit's not called a purity test. It's only called a purity test when you have something like when you have like voters, people who form part of the various core voting demographics of the Democrats, saying these are things we care about, and we're not going to vote for somebody who stands against us on these things. Then suddenly it's a purity test. You know, when say queer voters and people who are like have basic human decency say we're not going to vote for somebody who opposes civil rights for trans people, who supports taking away the rights trans people already have. You know, when people say we're not going to support a candidate, you know, for whatever party if they're involved in fucking genocide, then that's just that is condemned as a purity test. You're not allowed to have those, because the real definition, the operative definition of a purity test is things voters care about and Democrats don't. And the minute you understand that, everything makes way more sense.
Mayor Pete was...
Oh, this is 5 years ago. Yeah, we're going to skip that. I did not realize how old that was. I thought it was more recent. This is more recent.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Tim Fullerton from...
Okay, Rebecca Balance. I'm just trying to remember. What was her deal? Wasn't she was she ex-CIA or something? Or was that somebody else? Because I remember one of these purity test people, like, who complains about voters caring about shit, but I'm not actually sure if that is her or if that's somebody else. So I'm refreshing my memory here before we continue. Ah, yes, okay, pro-genocide. Although she did eventually, like, boycott fucking... boycott Netanyahu, which is a very low standard, but, like, all of the really low bars of, like, political standards for the political class in the U.S., you can always find somebody who will go under
Find Out podcast, and I am very...
And she's going to talk about why purity tests in the Democratic Party need to end.
Excited to welcome Vermont Congresswoman Balint. Did I get it right that time? Balint. I have screwed it up because I'm the worst name person ever.
Pro tip, Hungarian surnames, and hers is a Hungarian surname, almost always get stressed on the first syllable, which can be a bit of a challenge because Hungarian surnames, like Hungarian words in general, can often be quite long.
It's embarrassing. But anyways, thank you for joining us, Congresswoman. We are very excited. Also, for those of you who don't know her, she is the first female member of Congress to come from Vermont. So a bit of a history.
Trump to seize power. Like, we know people said we were being hysterical. People said we were exaggerating. Look, this is an administration that has cut a deal with Christian nationalists.
Is that really a surprise, though? I mean, that's just the Republican Party. I mean, that's Christian nationalists all the way down. There are very few people that have any weight in that party who aren't fucking Christian nationalists. So why are we acting like this is some sort of a novelty? I mean, you could say that about George W. Bush. You could...
in order for Trump to seize power. Like, we know he doesn't actually have any beliefs, right? He is somebody, he's an opportunist. And so he made a calculation to, certainly after the January 6th insurrection, to align himself with some of the most extreme parts of the underbelly, really, of the radical right, in order for him.
No, well, I mean, yes, that's what's called the Republican Party, though.
To seize power, retain power. And part of that is a Christian nationalist movement that wants to bring women back to the 1800s. They want to strip people of their rights. And we were not being alarmist.
I mean, the issue... Here's the thing, and I feel like this may also be illustrated in this conversation that we're watching here, is you'll hear liberals often quite accurately point out the kinds of threats that we're facing at the moment. Like, I mean, so I'm talking about, like, trying to declare martial law, or, like, cancel the elections, and taking over the courts and stuff like that. Okay, those are all plausible things. I think they do need to be taken seriously, but when you listen to the sort of responses that are encouraged by the same people, they don't take the threat seriously. Because if you think your threat is that your adversary is basically rendering all of the normal sort of systemic guardrails of the regime neutralized, the courts, elections, and stuff like that, then you have to be talking about and planning a response that does not rely on litigation and elections. Like, by definition, you can't just be saying, okay, he's going to cancel the election, so what we got to do is vote harder or whatever. Because that's not how that fucking works. You can't say, oh, he's taken over the courts, which, I mean, the Supreme Court, which ultimately gets to have the last word on these things in this system, is under the control of just far-right ghouls. And they don't give a shit about precedent, really, for the most part. So if you want to talk, so that's another guardrail that's not there, to the extent that it ever was, which is variable. So if you're going to talk about what to do about that kind of a situation, your solutions, your proposals cannot rely on those things. They have to go beyond those things. There has to be a what if. And nobody talks about that. It's always done in sort of the abstract, with no discussion of a response, where it's like, this is the threat, and it's not used to actually encourage people to say, okay, you gotta organize, you've got to be able to defend your communities, you need networks of care to make sure that people can eat, because the shit could get really real, and things like that. But of course they're not going to do that. And in fact, they discourage that. I don't know her specifically. I haven't heard her specifically say anything on the subject. But that's where you often hear the thing is, like, you're going to give them an excuse. As if these motherfuckers ever need an excuse. If they want an excuse, they just make one up. And all the people whose opinion they have to care about just pretends to believe it.
Okay? And this is not a time when I feel satisfied in us being right. It doesn't feel satisfying. It feels so damn bleak. But they are following the textbook. They are following exactly what they said they were going to do. And it's deeply, deeply frightening and disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, I live in New York City, but even, obviously we have a large minority population, a very large, strong LGBTQ plus community. And for a president who claimed that he was all about lowering prices and affordability, it seems he's more wanting to start culture wars.
Well, I mean, he was saying that stuff the whole time too. Like, I don't see like that. This is phrased in sort of a gotcha kind of way, but
and attack minority population. Than do anything for the cost of groceries, for example.
No
Have you
shit.
seen a single piece of legislation?
No, of course not. He doesn't give a shit. It was obvious he didn't give a shit. His voters don't particularly give a shit.
On affordability? Nothing, right?
No. This is about This is about demonizing, dehumanizing, getting us to continue to attack each other as Americans. So we are not focused on the people that are causing all of the harm. And if we look at the economic harm that has been wrought upon this nation for decades, right? Underpinning all of this is gross
capitalism,
economic disparity, right? And when we have those conditions, then it is a race to the bottom because it's a scarcity mindset. Who are we blaming, right? We are.
Well, I mean, the scarcity is, to a certain extent, real. But the scarcity is, you know, in the sense that it has real repercussions, but it is, of course, created by capital.
We're blaming black and brown people. We are blaming immigrants. We are blaming migrants. We are blaming women. We are blaming the LGBT community. We are not blaming the people at the top who benefit from the system.
Well, yes, because, I mean, I'm not sure who we is here. I mean, is she including herself in that? Because, of course, you know, if you're a member of Congress, you're kind of one of the people at the top who benefit from the system. Not at the most, but you're pretty close. You, at the very least, probably have the phone numbers of the people at the top who benefit from the system in your contact lists because you go to them to get fucking donations every once in a while.
And that is the game plan. That is what they're doing. They did it very successfully in the unfortunately in the campaign. They did that very successfully, dividing us.
They didn't, though. That is not how that worked. It wasn't that Trump was popular. It was that the Democrats decided that they wanted to do genocide more than they wanted to get into the White House. And subsequent polling has really borne that out. Like, literally the best thing that Harris could have done to win the thing was to just say, yeah, I mean, Biden has sucked, and he's doing genocide, and that stops the minute I get in. And that in itself would probably have improved things, because Biden was deeply unpopular, too. People...
So they were not focused on who is causing the harm. And it is going to take a lot of hard work for us as they see the deep betrayal. And I mean, there are definitely people who are deep in the MAGA mindset. And some of those people right now in this moment are not reachable, right? They are not. There is a big swath of people that I have, you know, I talk to folks about why it is in the end they voted for Trump.
Oh, good, we get anecdotes. It's, you know, and not like we have actual statistical data on the attitudes of people who support him.
Over Harris. And I just want to be clear, so I want to level set with everyone viewing. Racism is baked in. Sexism is baked in. Homophobia is baked in. So
okay, that's okay, better than expected, because a lot of the time when you hear this sort of phrasing, you get this sort of thing that sort of denies that all that stuff is there, when in fact what you're dealing with when you talk about people who vote for Trump is people who make more, whose median income is way above the national median, and who are very big on what polls call white identity.
I am in no way excusing it at all. But when you talk to the average person...
Which is interesting. Why is she why is she afraid that people are about to say that she's excusing it, I wonder?
Who is not really paying attention to politics, is not a politics nerd. They were voting on existential issues like housing, the price of groceries, the fact that they don't know how they're going to be able to take care of their families. And people would say to me, yeah, he's a total and complete jerk, though they would use things, you know, much more colorful language. But they'd say, but in the end, I feel like he is talking about the fact that it's not affordable. Now, of course, he was lying about everything. Right. But people...
But, I mean, that's kind of the admission price in this profession.
We are flawed humans. We want to believe that somebody is going to deliver an easy answer for us. But no, he said nothing on affordability. And in fact, the last, you know, the
Okay. See, I want to get in... This is not what I'm interested in. Supposedly, she's going to talk about purity tests. And what often happens on this stream, and I'm trying to do less of it, is I find a video that's going to talk about something I want to look at. And it talks about that thing, but there's like an hour and a half of other shit that you have to go through before you find the bit that you're trying to talk about, and by the time I find it, the stream is over for the night. And I don't want that to happen this time. I'm trying to actually get to what I'm trying to talk about.
I have been hammering so far on deaf ears with some of my colleagues across the aisle. They got rural hospitals too. Vermont is a rural state, right? And rural is rural, whether you're in Vermont or Michigan or Indiana or Kentucky. The margin for keeping those healthcare facilities not stand up and say, this is going to be bad for my people.
And I think in Maine as well, a lowering of the amount of people that are coming from Canada to the United States for tourism or to do shopping or to do whatever. And this has all been since about February 1, January 20th.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing the same thing in Vermont?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They are our biggest trading partner in Quebec because they don't want to come back in. If they're naturalized citizens, or in the case of my own spouse, who's an attorney, she said, I don't want them rifling through my phone. People in both directions. And we also, when I was talking with...
I mean, I don't want them rifling through my... Okay, a totally reasonable concern, but I mean, let's just remember that creating this absolute fucking monster of airport harassment and border harassment has been a bipartisan project. Like, you don't... So if you're going to talk about how much that sucks and what an invasion of privacy it is, and in the case of, like, people who have duties of confidentiality and potentially are holding people's lives in their hands with that information, what special dangers that creates, then you got to talk about how actually there is a whole fucking monster that has been created since the Patriot Act and even before that to make that happen. You got to actually talk about how, sometimes and this is what one of my sort of little purity tests for whether somebody, particularly like a Democrat or Labor Party politician, whoever, is serious when they point out things that are indeed wrong, is the extent to which they are willing to acknowledge their own party's involvement in making them that way. Because there's always that level of involvement. Like, that's basically always there, because these have been broad, political consensus issues a lot of the time that have made things worse. Not like popular political consensus, but in terms of the political class. So if you're serious about it, you're going to be accountable and say, yeah, my party's actually really fucked things up in this particular regard, and we need to reverse course. And if I don't hear that, then I don't think that it's for real. Then it sounds like posturing, because then you're not going to get into the reality of it. If you're really interested in changing the thing, you would be willing to have the discussion and piss off the people in your own ranks whose fault this is.
The other week in Vermont, so much of our lumber comes from Canada into Vermont. Many of my builders get their windows from facilities in Vermont, and vice versa. Again, this is asinine.
When are we going to talk about purity tests? Because that's why this video was even here. Oh, she lost connection. Okay.
Congresswoman, if you could see, I think I've sent an invite. You might be able to just hit accept. Talking about you had just started talking about how there's concern among Trump voters. Just want to give us a recap of what you were saying, and we'll go from there.
Exactly. There is starting to be concern and some buyer's remorse, but it is, I think, very difficult for us as humans to admit that we made a mistake.
See, okay, I feel like this is probably where we get into this subject. And the thing to remember is we had this before, this whole act, where it's like you need to welcome these right-wingers who supposedly have decided to be on the right side of history, often like just rats jumping out of a sinking ship. Like people like fucking Liz Cheney and the like. As if we should bend over backwards in order to encourage what is generally actually a very small number of people, and to do it in a way, and to risk alienating people who actually are on side, or something like that. And that feels like where this is going, and this seems to be where we're finally going to talk about the bullshit that I was trying to, that I put this video on in the first place.
And we actually got swindled, right? That's super uncomfortable for all of us, regardless of political party, right? And it takes everyone to a different point, right? Like, what will you tolerate? What is beyond what you're able to tolerate? And I had a really interesting realization. I was listening to an interview with Adam Kinzinger, who was a Republican, for those who don't know who that is. He was a Republican who served in Congress. He was one of the only 2 Republicans who served on the January 6th Commission. He gave an interview to Ann Applebaum, who does a lot of...
One of the things Ann Applebaum did, other than being on the Pulitzer Committee, is she wrote an article on why it is okay and actually praiseworthy to kill Palestinian journalists because they make Israel and the United States look bad.
Research and writing on autocracy. And in that interview, he said, people within the MAGA movement are so afraid of losing their identity as being part of a group that they felt like understood where they were coming from, that it is not just about leaving a political party, it's about leaving a group in which you feel a sense
it's called white nationalists.
belonging. And so, that takes a lot of time, and we as Democrats need to be figuring out, how do we give people on-ramps into a different way of looking at the world, and how do we give them...
Well, I don't think that they're the ones who are going to do it, because to the extent that these are people who have any, decency at all, they probably already realized the Democrats don't have any credibility. And the only reason that they thought that Trump was anything worthwhile would have been because he doesn't sound like the usual shit. But the thing is, trying to bend over backwards to reach the tiny number of white supremacists with buyer's remorse is just, it's bullshit. It's not a large number of people. It is actually involves considerable and unnecessary effort, and often the reason that we're supposed to focus on, moderate white nationalists with buyer's remorse, whatever the fuck. The reason we're supposed to focus on them is they offer a justification for moving right, rather than actually engaging with the much larger group of people who never liked this asshole, never was on side with this bullshit, and want decent things.
Graceful off-ramps, right? So in you and I chatted briefly about sort of what I'm hearing from specifically from men and boys as I travel around Vermont and in other states, and they want to feel a sense of belonging within the Democratic Party. And what I'm hearing over and over again is they don't see that as a home for them, and they want...
Because of what, though?
They want us to invite them back in.
Yeah, but what does that mean? What does inviting them back in mean? This is what's maddening about this discussion a lot of the time, is that it does not really... It avoids talking about exactly what's meant here. What's the sense of belonging? Why is that missing? That can mean a whole lot of things. What does inviting them back in mean? Because, I don't think that anyone is disinviting them now. So clearly it means changing something about what you're doing in order to make them more comfortable. Well, changing what exactly? And a lot of the time these conversations are deliberately vague, specifically so that you don't talk about exactly what is really at stake.
And so that is something that I'm thinking a lot about, because we didn't just lose the numbers of white men. We lost a lot of men of color. And so we can...
Yeah, for very different reasons a lot of the time.
Keep sort of, casting the blame outward, they're all racist, they're all sexist.
Well, these things are, as she pointed out earlier, those things are literally true.
They don't care, right? That is
all of that is just objectively a fact.
That is too simple an explanation.
For the people she's talking about. I mean, the thing is, there are also people who are, in fact, a much larger group of people who are the poorest segment of the electorate, and also the least likely to vote. They also tend to be way to the left of the Democrats on a lot of major issues, and their problem is they just don't actually trust anyone. You know, even people who talk a good game, they don't trust them for good reason, because they've been given all sorts of reasons to distrust them. But they don't want to talk about this because it would involve actually moving left, and that pisses off donors.
I always say, I want to win, so I have to understand what happened.
Well, I mean, part of what happened is the genocide thing, which you're not talking about, even though there's tons of polling now showing that Harris probably would have won if she had just come out against it.
I don't want to lose. I want to win so we can alleviate suffering in this country. And so for us to win, we have to understand it and not come from a place of we know exactly what's happening for them. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think that I also get the instinct on the other end of it, right? To be like, I told you so, or what were you thinking, right? It's very easy to fall.
Well, yeah, but that isn't even the thing. I mean, yeah, there is that. But the point is you're often you're talking about fucking white supremacists. You're talking about people who actually, again, in polls, overwhelmingly consider that to be a very important part of their identity, white supremacism. They don't want to talk about that because, yeah, well, they want to talk about it in a very indirect way because that's where purity tests come in, which I'm sure we're about to hear about soon, surely.
Absolutely.
But we actually, on our show that came out yesterday, we were talking about purity tests and how we can't afford to have purity tests right now.
Okay, so okay, chat, what examples do you expect to hear of this phenomenon of the dreaded purity test?
100%.
You know, and like you are a member of the LGBTQ community, and so like and the Republicans have been you know, going after the LGBTQ community.
Well, specifically trans people. And Democrats have been getting out of the way a lot of the time so that they can attack successfully.
I mean, I think the Ogre Belt thing is coming back up with Kim Davis and gay marriage, which is ridiculous. You know, Ron DeSantis painting over the rainbow flag in front of Pulse last week, which is just cruel and inhumane and just absurd, especially in a state that doesn't have a lot of funds. So you are coming from a community that tends to be targeted by Republicans. So it's very, very important, I think, for folks to hear you say we need to welcome them. But I guess the question is,
just checking something real quick.
how do we do it?
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked this because, you know, I literally said the other...
Because, I mean, the thing is, sometimes people use the term LGBT community to as an umbrella, and sometimes it's used as a way of allowing somebody in one of the more comfortable segments of that community to sort of speak for people who are actually being very specifically targeted. And I was just trying to make sure that there wasn't anything that I'd missed to say that she is, in fact, a cis lesbian woman. So when she's not talking about attacks specifically on her own community here. I mean, not that directly affect her, although anyone in the, any queer person who actually knows, who pays attention, knows that that's where it's ultimately going, which is why the idea is you have to stop it where it starts rather than letting it gather steam.
Other night at an event, I am a gay woman, or I'm a queer woman. I'm a big old lesbo. I call myself a crappy little dyke, okay? But I'm also a woman and a mom and somebody who cares deeply about the suffering of all people. Okay. I do feel like I'm uniquely situated right now to have this conversation with people
I mean, not uniquely, surely.
Never going to stop fighting for my community. I am going to go toe-to-toe with people in committee and on the floor of the House of Representatives defending my rights, defending the rights of all Americans.
Okay, what about, I mean, and I will say, just to be clear, she has actually taken some, publicly taken some pro-trans rights positions in the past, but she seems to be, but she's not saying trans people right now. Maybe she will be saying it in a second, but it's an interesting absence, because that's who's specifically under attack.
When it comes to electoral politics, I am going to allow more people in who don't say things exactly right, who don't necessarily...
Like what? What do you mean don't say things exactly right? We're talking about mispronouncing things, are we?
Have all, the right lingo, who...
Like what?
Their hearts are in the right place. And for me, here, I got a very, very simple litmus test.
Okay.
Do you believe in the Constitution?
That's a meaningless litmus test. Because lots of people will say that and they mean completely different things with it.
Do you believe in the rule of law?
Again, meaningless as fuck. Because lots of people will say this and they don't actually mean the same thing. And also, like, there are actually, even within liberal legal scholarship, there are influential segments that of legal scholarship that actually point out that the concept of the rule of law is not only doesn't exist, but is impossible, because laws cannot apply themselves. There's always a person getting between the law and its application, and that means we always end up, because the concept of the rule of law is a nation of laws and not of men. I think that was John Jay who said that, though I could very well be wrong. And the point is, there are always going to be people deciding what the application means, which is why the concept is actually kind of a little bit bullshit. But again, even amongst people who say, yes, I believe in that, who will say that does not actually mean that they're decent people. That doesn't mean that they stand for the right things. That is such a vague thing.
Are you fighting against authoritarianism?
Like, again, what the fuck does that mean?
Okay, great. You're on my team right now.
Like, literally, if you asked Trump these things, he would say yes, yes, yes. If you asked a lot of his supporters, they would say yes, yes, yes. And yet, they would also very much disagree with you being on your team, because their idea of what it means to say yes to all three of those questions are very different things. Like, this is an absolutely meaningless test. Like,
and we can sort out a lot.
This is like you have a final exam and the only question is a multiple choice. Do you want a passing mark on this exam? Yes, no, don't know. Well, obviously you choose yes.
One of the other details later, but this is where we're
Well, the other details are kind of important, because there are people who say they believe in the Constitution, and what that does not necessarily, and what they believe about the Constitution is that it guarantees that this is supposed to be a Christian white Christian ethno-state that bans trans people. And they would say they believe in the Constitution. They would say they believe in the rule of law. They would say, probably, that they're opposing authoritarianism, because that is such a vague concept that, like, anyone can claim to be doing it. Like, this is absolutely meaningless.
Do you believe in a democracy or do you not?
Like, okay, but again, there are lots, like, people who support Orban would say they believe in a democracy, a lot of them. People, and a lot, like, every single bit of this is meaningless unless you get into the details, and because so many different things can be meant by saying yes or no to these things. So you have to get into the details, and she's like, well, postpone the details. Well, if you don't, you can't postpone the details because you don't know what this person is saying yes to.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And
there are Nazis who would say yes to all three of those things.
I give you a really good example of this. So Joe Walsh who was a Tea Party member of Congress when I was in the Obama administration. I remember when he came in.
No wonder this is such a pointless conversation.
And I was like, my God, who on earth is this? And then celebrated when he lost, but has made a journey over the past.
Yes, he has.
A journey.
Years. And I have gotten to know him, and he actually came on our show, and he just registered as a Democrat.
Like, yeah, but what does that fucking mean? What is he for? Like, I mean, I'm sure that he would say, because I remember the Tea Party, and they were very big on saying they believe in the Constitution. I think they probably also said they believe in the rule of law. And I think if you pressed them, they would probably have said they were fighting against authoritarianism, because everyone can claim to be fighting against that. It's a fucking vague concept, and the way it's used in liberal discourse makes it even more vague and meaningless. So what?
And, which I think is great, but I do think he has faced resistance to that. And
as he should.
Think that, and I understand because, like, he, said awful things about Sandy Hook. I worked in Everytown, so, like...
Well, yeah, like, maybe accountability is a good thing.
I understand, but, like, if people do the work, there's very few, like, politicians who have actually done the work. I think Adam Kinziger's one and Joe Walsh is another one.
Well, what do you mean he's done the work? He registered, he changed his fucking voter registration. That's doing the work for you now, is it?
But you got to do the work. But once you do the work...
What's the work? Because we've already established that all you have to do is say yes to 3 questions that virtually everyone in the United States would say yes to, without thinking about it. Because we're not encouraged to think about what these concepts mean.
Like, you should be welcomed. I think you're exactly right, because we are in existential crisis.
Like, what's the work? What's the nature of the crisis?
Here.
We are.
This is not like we're arguing over Romney Care or universal health care here.
Well, I mean, we should be.
We're arguing over democracy or fascism.
Well, except the thing is, when you're arguing over those healthcare options, one of which is supported by the majority of the population, and the other which is supported mostly by the insurance industry, you are arguing about democracy because you're arguing about whether the majority of the population's preferences about how the society should operate have any weight at all. And if you're going to talk about fucking, you're going to claim to be about, talking about democracy, you have to address the fact that actually there's a reason that actually the Save Our Democracy messaging pulls so badly. And it's not actually hard to see if you also look at other polling, especially over a long period of time, because what you find is that what most people want to have happen, and what the political class actually does, tend to be the opposite on a lot of things. And so most people, I do not doubt it, hear Save Our Democracy, and their answer is like, what fucking democracy? What we think doesn't matter at all in this system. It sucks. That doesn't necessarily mean that they've come over to actually like a revolutionary position or something, and actually that sort of place that a lot of people can end up in can actually go in all sorts of places, including deeply reactionary directions, depending on what else is going on around them to a certain extent. But the thing is, you can't separate these things out this way, because unless you're specifically saying that you consider democracy to just be the opportunity to put a little piece of paper in a box in order to decide who gets to decide for you. Which is meaningless if it doesn't actually give you any say in what the outcome is.
And the way it's currently going, and police states, they're talking about sending the guard now to Chicago. I'm sure New York City is high on that list, probably not in Vermont at the moment, but Boston and other places like that. So I think you're totally right. I think it's such an important message for folks.
But again, those 3 questions, the 3 tests, a lot of the people who would support like sending the National Guard and shit to attack protesters and would support mass deportations and all this shit, they would answer yes to all three of these things. It is so fucking meaningless. You cannot, I mean, if you want to know whether somebody is on side, whether, you know, because the stakes are high, and that means you gotta actually know who's got your back and who you shouldn't turn your back on, and that requires you to actually know more about them than just 3 platitudes that they can sign on to. Like, if you've lived in the US for more than 6 months, in fact, if you've just watched Hollywood movies at all, you would already know what the right answer to those 3 questions are.
And then we were obviously talking about before, I'm going to narrow it down a little bit more, talking about men specifically. So men, I think men are, white men in particular, but men are the toughest demographic for Democrats. And I think in talking to a lot, and like I said, I'm from Maine, so I have plenty of Republican friends who voted for Trump and LePage and all that insanity. And how do, like, some of them are not gettable, right? Like, some of them, at least in this moment in time.
In this moment are not gettable. But
how,
yeah.
Like, for men and...
Well, like, all of those people, if you ask them, do you believe in the Constitution? Do you believe in the rule of law? Do you believe in, what was the third thing? Do you believe in being against authoritarianism? Almost certainly you would get 3 yeses if you asked these people. That's how little it fucking means.
In particular, who see as weak and feckless, or, you know, there's many of them who criticize us for supporting Biden through last year. What do you say to those people? How do you start that conversation?
Why are we talking to those people? Like, there's a much larger group of other people to talk to and to really apologize to. But it's much more comfortable to try to win over the far right, because you're not going to piss off donors by doing that.
First of all, I listen first. I don't assume that I know what's going on for them. I ask a lot of questions, and I always say I start with curiosity, okay? And if someone tells me they voted for Trump or they didn't vote, that's the other thing.
Which is 2 very different things. You're talking about very different demographics there. Like, you can't treat those as, like, 2 roughly assimilated things.
And here's the thing. I want to pull back a curtain here.
For one thing, the people who simply abstain are a much larger demographic. And politically, they tend to be much more to the, you know, massively to the left of Democrats on a lot of things. And when they do vote, they almost always will vote for Democrats.
There are a lot of young men who either didn't vote because they didn't feel represented, or they voted for Trump, but you may not know that.
And again, here, those are 2 very different things, and you talk to those people very different ways. If your idea is to just fucking, because again, those are different political positions. People who voted for Trump had somebody to vote for.
Now, I happen to have a teenage son, so I hear sort of what is happening in high schools around Vermont, and throughout the campaign, I started hearing from parents, and Vermont does lean.
Oh, well, have a good night. Hopefully your day goes well. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Heavily to the left. Okay, we're all purple states, right? I have Republicans here too, but lean purple. An interesting thing started happening is people kept coming up to me in hushed tones and quiet tones at events saying, I'm really concerned about my son and my son's friends, that they are being targeted by Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA.
Yep.
They are being offered a different...
And now I'm curious, when was this conversation held? A month ago. Okay, so that already happened.
Kind of way to think about their boyhood and their masculinity, and it's working. And I had this conversation over and over.
Okay, and it is time for me to wrap up as well. Have a good night. Thank you for joining the stream. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. And I look forward